everyone. It is Monday, July 3rd, and you are at Litvak Leadership Live, where we talk to subject matter experts about how they've gotten where they are. We talk to them about their faith and their world outlook. Our guest tonight is a tremendous guy. His name is McGahee. He is with Rhinox Research Group. He is the owner and founder of that. I've heard him speak a couple of times now, once in a smaller setting for about 20 minutes, and then there was another time for about 4 hours. So without any further ado, let me bring out my friend, McGahee.
Hey, Sean, how's it going?
I am doing well. How are you this fine evening?
I'm doing all right. I like your camera. You got the HD quality going.
I try, and when COVID hit, I definitely upgraded the home office a little bit so I could have what I needed to talk to people. But man, your image is great too, so it's a beautiful thing.
Well, it's just nice to be seen and heard sometimes.
Absolutely. So we've already got Maurice Frost here. Good to see you, Maurice.
Hey, Maurice, glad you made it, brother.
So let me ask you, Aaron, because I begin most every show the same way, because like I said in the opening, Litvak Leadership Live is about subject matter experts, how they got where they got, and their faith. So before I go any further, though, shame on me if I don't recognize you are a veteran. Thank you for your service. It is because of men and women like you that we get to celebrate Independence Day tomorrow. And I truly, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your service.
Yeah, I appreciate you that. Appreciate you, Sean. It's one of those days where we all get to take a moment and just kind of step back and enjoy the fruits of our labor, especially for those men and women who serve in the armed forces. 4th of July is like a birthday party to us. So being able to, just enjoy the day, maybe blow some stuff up, on our terms, it's always fun.
Yeah, blowing stuff up that's not going to blow you up is definitely
hopefully that's the goal.
That's the goal. So why don't you spend a couple minutes just telling people about your background?
So I'm a Louisville native. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and went to Seneca High School. That's here in Louisville, Kentucky, and graduated at the age of 17 and immediately went to the United States Air Force as a security forces member. So that's like our military police force. Within the security forces wing, I was able to become a combat arms instructor, which is our military weapons instructor. I was able to become what's called a PSD, and sometimes it's difficult trying to, because I say a lot of acronyms, and then I try my best to make sure I'm roping in all the people who don't know these acronyms.
Yeah, so I have no idea what
they're a double talk sometimes. So if you see me slowing down, it's because I got to make sure that I break down these acronyms so I don't just start saying a bunch of letters and numbers and confuse everybody. But so PSD is personal security detail, and that's essentially a bodyguard, joint task force with the Army. And then I did 3 tours, 2 combat tours. I did Kyrgyzstan was my first tour, and there I was just a cop locking up other folks for doing stuff they weren't supposed to be doing. Mainly, I will say it was a lot of Marines acting up on an Air Force base. But when I got to my second tour, that was to Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, I grew up pretty fast there as a 22-year-old staff sergeant. I was a part of a PSD unit, ADT3. Our job was to go into the villages, talk to the leaders and the elders, and work with their agricultural department to help see where we can improve not only just their agriculture, but our relations with them as well. Kind of this hearts and minds counterinsurgency strategy. So we were the fun wagon, if you will. Whenever we showed up, we brought medicine, we brought coloring books for the kids. And then I got back home And that's when I got into the University of Louisville, where I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, focusing on reformation and juvenile justice, trying to build a criminal justice system that's built for the society we have today and not the one we had yesterday, right? A justice system that is self-sufficient and can manage itself is something I think we all look forward to. But while I was at the University of Louisville, I was also in the Air Force ROTC, where I got a distinguished grad out of field training, and I ended up getting what we call voluntold to be a part of Operation Inherent Resolve, which was my third and final deployment, and that was to Mosul, Iraq, against ISIS. And so,
Wow.
Yeah, it was a small window, but it was a decent tour. But it led me to a bit of an epiphany. I'm like, I'm more on the scholarly side than I am anything, and most people, they're called like warrior poets or something like that. But they're people that embrace the reality of warfare and its importance, but they also embrace the importance of culture and being well read and well studied in the activities that you're doing. And so I also have a bit of education in philosophy, history, and communication as well. And one of my biggest interests was trying to figure out how people create civilizations and what we can do to prevent them from collapsing. And if you look through the histories, there's a lot of interesting ways that societies just don't make it. And that's what I speak a lot to when it comes to defense. We have to be able to protect our progress.
So, and I also know that when we first met, for everyone to know, I'm part of the International Facility Management Association and the Louisville chapter. And the way that I met Aaron was we put on an active shooter training, what to do when you find yourself in an active shooter situation. And last year, it was probably around, I think it was October or so, when we sat down with the leaders of the event and Aaron, and we all just started talking because we had hired Aaron, someone had heard him speak, and we sit down, we start talking, and within about 5 minutes, Aaron says, well, I just want to let you all know I'm a Christian. So, Aaron, that was something that at the time I really respected, because in business, to come right out and bring up your faith perspective, your faith beliefs is bold. It's challenging. Everyone doesn't like it. I like it. So you like 1 points with me big time that day. So I say all that to ask you, this verse here is of a life verse for me, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be given to you. It's from Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. And it goes on to say, therefore, take no thought for tomorrow will take thought about the things of itself. So, Aaron, tell me, when you look at that verse and you look at what you do professionally, helping individuals to be ready for an active shooter situation or training individuals on how to use their firearm, what does this verse mean to you?
Well, I love the verses. I think they're wonderful. I will not interpret this verse in any way. Just speaking on, I guess, the revelation that I pull from it. And my revelation that's been given to me is that if we understand the kingdom of God, right, what it is and where it is, right, it's not on earth. So not only is it not here, it is eternal. So the things that we must do in order to stay within good grace should be things that are not aimed towards the dirt, and they should be things that are eternal. And that's why I focus on something that's so critical to human existence. We've been lulled into a false sense of security. We've been put in kind of a passive state. And for the longest time, we've seen that the law-abiding, I won't say law-abiding citizen, that's typically, but I'll say the Christian individual, the Christian household has seen its protection wane. And we have to meet God halfway,
Okay. Explain what that means to you.
So one of my favorite, tales about meeting God halfway is the man with the lottery ticket. So there's this man, he's always wishing to win the lottery. Like it's just what he wants, right? So he prays every night. He's always begging God, praying, please let me win the lottery. Please, 2 weeks go by, lottery's coming up. He's so pumped. He's been praying every week, every day, every night to win this lottery. And then the day comes, the numbers drop, and he doesn't win. And he gets back down on his knees. He's broken down, and he talks to God, and he says, I prayed every day for this. Why didn't it happen? And a small voice in the back of his head said, you never bought a ticket.
So
you can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. If there's God's grace to protect us, right? But
absolutely,
free will has in it a multitude of things that is up to us. And a part of that, if history is to be referenced, is to protect ourselves. We cannot expect to build anything or to reach any lives if we don't protect our progress. Because like I said, there are so many societies that have seen their entire livelihoods either changed or erased almost overnight because they failed to man the walls.
Oh, when you look at society today, there are some definite changes going on in a very structured, passive, almost kind of way that people are just kind of giving away their freedoms to a certain extent. Started during COVID, and I think COVID trained a lot of people to just say, well, this is what's good. This is what's better. And, this is what'll help everyone. But it also allowed for a lot of lawlessness. You said earlier that when you went for your criminal justice degree, you talked about a criminal justice system for today and not yesterday. I found that really interesting. What exactly do you mean by that?
So that's a great question, Sean. There's been a what we call a social phenomenon or a systematic phenomenon, but based on the system as it has produced a continuous result, which is recidivism. And it's some people say it's reject on the inside and or neglect on the inside and reject on the outside, where if you're in corrections, you're not really being corrected. You're just kind of being safeguarded and until your release date. And then when you get back to the streets, when you get back home, there's no job for you because you're convicted. So maintaining this stigma and kind of labeling people, putting them in a box. And we all know about self-fulfilled prophecy. If you put someone in a box, if you label someone, eventually, if they can't find a way to deviate from that label, then they will adopt that label and then be the best version of that, even if the label is negative. So at least they're significant in the role.
So if we're in, the United States of America, the greatest social experiment that's ever happened, the country with the greatest freedoms of all and the greatest opportunity, what do we do for those released individuals, those released prisoners, those released bad actors? I've heard lots of phrases. I've worked in jail ministry and prison ministry,
Mhm.
and I know talking to these men, and I can't say about the women, my wife has worked with the women, talking to these men, most of the time they seem like the most gentle, thoughtful, filled with the Holy Ghost kind of people. Of course, those are the ones that are coming to the church services. But at the same time, there's a reason they're behind bars. So I take it with a grain of salt that they're all sweetie when they're coming to hear the preaching and praise God. What can we do as a society that, in your opinion, that will give people the opportunity to, have jobs that either they're qualified for or they're trained for or can get training for, so they can, turn into Robert Downey Jr., who, went to jail for several years over cocaine and then became Iron Man.
You got to hook them up. It's just, I'm not going to mince words about this one, because this is something that is a social phenomenon that continues to happen. So the only way out of this is the way we haven't chosen yet. Somebody's got to pay the Pied Piper. All right, we've been ignoring social services for way too long, and we've paid the price for it. So we got to hook them up. When they get out, they get a handler, somebody, a social service agent, somebody to help them reconnect to their family.
Right.
And then when they get reconnected to their family, hook them up with a job. Find some businesses that are willing to go out on a limb and just hire somebody for the sake of, hiring somebody. Maybe it's not a mid-level management position, but I'm sure you got some entry-level positions where anybody can do it. So we have to find ways of giving them the second chance that is promised at the end of the tunnel, because there is nothing worse than getting to the end of the tunnel and realizing that the lights are red and blue.
That's an interesting way to put it. That is a definite problem. But when you look at, there's different organizations that will hire people that have been incarcerated. And most of the time, those roles are the lower paying roles. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
What about training or instilling leadership, foresight, vision for people to, get into the gig economy? You started, and I'm not saying you're a prisoner, but you were in the military, you came back, you got a job, and, all great things. One of the things I wish I would have done in my life was been in the military, because I think it would have taught me self-discipline earlier in life than when I finally learned it. And, I've got, Litvak leadership, you've got Rhinox research group, you had a motivation. I wrote my book. How do we teach these people, encourage these people, plug them in? Because frankly, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, it's easy for someone to be self-taught on all kinds of things. Go to YouTube, go to TikTok, go to Reels, go find a free course. There's all kinds of opportunity. How do we get someone to take that initiative?
So first, I personally disdain the word self-taught, self-made, because it is outside of reality. A lot of people say they're self-made, but they went through public education.
Right.
You're not self-made if somebody. So I think we have to. I think.
Well, and when I say self-taught, I didn't say self-made. When I say self-taught,
yeah.
I've studied how to write a book. Okay,
right.
and yes, I ended up hiring an editor. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of things that with public speaking, there's video upon video upon video on YouTube. And for just about anything someone wants to do,
well, maybe
they
that's the
can
key.
find an expert out there that they can watch.
Maybe that's the key right there. So they say all problems come from the same source, and when I say they, I mean me. This is me talking right now. So all problems come from the same source, and we never really know what that source is. But if you walk in the same direction long enough, you'll get to the source or close to it to where you can solve the problem. So how about we take the understanding that it takes a lot to learn new skills, right? If it was simple, then I mean, it would be easier to do. But I think maybe we can identify those coaches, those instructors, those leaders, and make it a government initiative, make it a government-run program, make it a program that is founded in the eternal promise that when you get out, there will be opportunities for you. And find those instructors, find those educators, find those coaches that are willing to share their knowledge for free 99. Find somebody who is willing to teach somebody HVAC. Can we get a couple free scholarships to some trade schools so that some of these people, maybe not violent offenders, maybe there's a certain threshold that these programs require, but if someone just got out of prison, I mean, it's like when you welcome someone into your home. These are folks who have been incarcerated.
Right.
The least we can do when they get out is show them our best foot forward. Because they're being reintroduced
for their crime.
Right. They're being reintroduced to us just as much as we're being reintroduced to them. So we have the waferware to make that experience where you're like, maybe we need reintegration ceremonies, just like they have immigration ceremonies. What about a reintegration ceremony where you, I don't know, swear a vow to be a better citizen, and then you let go? Maybe that sounds like something else, but I think we should do better in shaking their hand when they come out.
So what kind of difference do you think it would make? Because many people who are incarcerated, and I've heard chaplains refer to it as jailhouse religion. All right. And what about, these individuals, everyone I know that has been incarcerated, that ended up following up and finding a good church and finding a pastor and showing up to church every Sunday and digging into the Bible, whether it be a man or a woman, those people ended up straightening their life out and making a difference. I've known many people who have gone into management, started here, worked their way here, and these were the people who were at church every single Sunday. When people were looking at them going, they just got out. But they showed up every single Sunday. I mean, what about the faith element of getting people involved to understand that there is a supernatural power bigger than themselves and to lean into God?
Well, I think the last thing you said is probably the most important part. Lean into God. It's too often when we face a problem, we grow roots instead of growing wings. A lot of times, instead of seeing a bird's eye view of the situation, we tend to try to get as low to the ground as we can to see what little problem we can solve, instead of seeing maybe a spurious correlation or what's the root cause of this. What is the big deal here? And the big deal is that we have a happy problem.
We have a what problem?
We have a happy problem. People are not happy, okay? And I think it's because we become too reliant on the material world for satisfaction. And one of the biggest things that can help us move forward is being able to do things as they're written. And I'm not saying we go Old Testament or nothing weird like that, but if you say you're a Christian and you see somebody in need, then
Right.
it should be a default that charity
You
is
help
in
them.
your heart, right? You help them. That's it. If we apply that to everything, then we'll be fine. And I know that's a grandiose call, but I think there's enough good people left with teeth and claws that can actually pave a way for some of the folks who aren't fighters.
Yeah, I mean, and the challenge that we have is that when you look at some of the people who are on street corners with a cardboard sign, you know, we too often we've heard the story that that's like their job. That some of them are actually homeless, and some of them they're on the corner collecting cash as a job. There needs to be a way, and I don't know what the answer is, that we can distinguish one from the other. Because I don't give people money. I will give them food. Okay. I will give them my business card and say, you need a job, go to this address and apply for a job. To give this to the person when you get there, tell them I told you to go there. And inevitably, I've never had anyone show up with the business card.
Yeah,
You know,
because
and that kind of stuff is
that's not what they're looking for, man. That's not what they're looking for, Sean.
Right, but don't we want to get, you know, and obviously this wasn't
how about this?
This wasn't where we were planning to talk tonight, but it's kind of happened.
How about I will say, because I am from Newburg and I grew up you know, low income housing. My mom did everything she could. But you know, food stamps was the currency. And
right.
So I know the plight. I understand the circumstances, and I will say that it does take a big push to change that status into something else. But I'll tell you what happens before progress, and that is purpose. People need purpose.
Absolutely.
Without purpose, you're like a car with no gas. Right? The purpose, why do you want to do something? Because there you go. Why?
I'm almost done. I'm almost done reading it. I'm pretty close.
Yeah, and that's so true. It starts with the why. Why do you want to do this? Because if your why is little, your progress will be little. Why? Because a little why is a little gas and a little car. But if you got a big why, like if someone asked me my why is to keep everybody safe. That's it. I'm gonna keep everybody safe. And do I need certain capabilities to do that? Sure, I do. Do I need help? Of course I do. But that would be with anything. If I wanted to surf, I would probably need some type of help, right? But the bigger the mission, you know, the more following that, not going to say the more following that you will see or the more growth you will have, but the more grit you'll get, that's for sure. Backing down won't be on the table. It'll be one of those things where it's either we go bang or we go bust. You know, either we make it or we don't. And sometimes that's we tend to wait for some type of inspiration, you know. And I will tell you, I have just recently learned about something called anaerobic praying. And anaerobic praying is treating praying like you would your workouts. You wouldn't expect to go to the gym tomorrow and start doing wind sprints and just knock it out the park. You're gonna still be in there with some glucose tabs. But if you start off light, right, maybe 15 minutes, because that's all you can do right now.
Right.
And you just pray for that 15 minutes, just 15 minutes. And then the next time you see if you can go for 30. How deep into prayer have you really gotten?
Absolutely.
Because if you got some deep problems, you can't expect to pull it out by the root by digging a couple inches into the dirt. You got to go all the way in. And sometimes you got to talk to God longer.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, you know, and not only talk to him, but sit there and be quiet and wait for him to say something back.
And don't pray laying down.
No, that's a good way to go
You're
sleep.
gonna go to sleep. You're gonna go to sleep. That's what my pastor says. He's like, you can pray sitting, you can pray standing, you can pray walking. Do not pray laying down. You will go to sleep.
Bed.
It's a given. You will go to sleep. So our theme tonight was how to live your calling, patriotism, and faith in 2023. As we look at what we're talking about with those that have been incarcerated, we look at society as a whole, because you've obviously got some really strong opinions there, which I like. You've got a mission to keep people safe. How do you personally wrap your calling, your patriotism, and your faith into Aaron McGahee?
It's called integration. And so there's this elementary definition of integrity that has been spread throughout just about every organization. And the idea of integrity, I mean, you probably know, like, what's your definition of integrity?
In integrity, well, there's a few definitions. There's whatever you do, would you be willing to do on stage?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you do, would you be willing to do in front of God? Or would you be willing to have it broadcast live for the whole world to see? If what you're doing, it doesn't meet those qualifications, then you shouldn't be doing it. That is integrity.
That's solid. I like that. And the one that people typically get is do the right thing even when nobody's looking. And that is what happens when you allow people to play with words and play with definitions. It ultimately means to be integrated. So
right.
When you say my faith and my mission and my purpose and my business, it's because they're all integrated. The integrity is throughout. It is like when I met you and I said in the middle of our conversation, I just want to let y'all know I'm a Christian. And I said that because I felt like we had gone to a certain level where maybe other conversations would start to happen. And I just wanted to know, I just wanted to let y'all know so y'all weren't uncomfortable that that's my faith base. So if you know anything about Christians, then you know, don't be disrespectful to me. Don't say nothing too crazy. And
yeah,
then
Robin and Jill are kind of rough people. So
oh no, they're not at all. They're gonna get you for that. They're gonna get you. No,
they're not.
Awesome. But I walk by faith. You know, it's one of the things that recently, and I just got to tell this to somebody for the first time, but I'll tell it to you and everyone else that's watching and listening. But I had this real big issue where I would always watch my bank account. Like I would stare at it like a hawk. Like if I could have it like a live tracker, like Robinhood or something like that, where I just watch my money go up and down and up and down, I would do that. I would sit there and watch that because I'm critical in nature. That's how I am. And I felt like it was the mark of the progress I was making, right? It's the ultimate goalpost. And so I made it my goalpost, and but it brought on a lot of anxiety, right? It brought on a lot of negative feelings. And the workload for me is increasing. It's not going down, it's going up, and it's getting more and more serious. And so I have to be able to increase my capabilities to match my opportunities so that I can seize them wholesale and not have to give them away or tell somebody no. So I had to turn my mind off of my bank account, and I've just made an agreement. I was like, for the next 3 months, I'm not looking at my bank account. I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do, and it will increase. If I just do what I'm supposed to do, it will increase. I'm too busy worried about the results. My head's not in the game on the action part, because the action is where you start to sow the seeds, and then you get the increase later. So I stopped looking at my bank account for about 3 months, and I recently looked at it, and I had hit one of my financial goals. And that was 3 months not looking at the account. I would just focus on people. Who do I need to be talking to? Where do I need to be? What can I do to expand conversations, get more opportunities to speak, help some folks out, and of course, ultimately train as many people as possible. And I just focused on the people. And at the end of the day, the result was clear and evident. It was working.
That's great. That's great. Well, here we're having an internet issue because us on and off day. We got to try this content here. Great job, informational education. I do not. Well, my internet crashed. Aaron has left. I see we're still live. So be happy, be well, be blessed in all you do. Thank you, Aaron, for a lively conversation. Have a great night, everyone.